Today, we will be discussing moral considerability and the five different moral theories that govern moral considerability. What is moral considerability? This is the moral. These are the moral theories that determine what matters morally. What you know, what like things will fly, what things won't fly, based on like moral, a moral, but from a moral standpoint. So, for example, um, abortion. Certain things. Abortion is technically the termination of a fetus or a pregnancy. Um, you can see that as there are different moral standpoints you can have in terms of moral considerability, as in, like, do you count the fetus as a person or is it something different? Um, this is what kind of these theories of moral considerability kind of try to tackle. So the five theories are ratiocentrism, anthropocentrism, sentientism, biocentrism, and ecocentrism. Go over the like what all five of them are and their flaws, and then I'll leave you with the kind of call to action to figure out which one you most relate to, in a sense, in terms of how you feel personally. So, for example, ratiocentrism it basically describes it. Ratiocentrism gives moral considerability to those who are rational beings. Basically, those who act on like reason and not impulse or instinct. For example, instinct, like especially. So an example of this would be like giving more considerability to humans, adult humans, because they have the ability to act reasonably, or with reason, and not just off of an instinct. Um, Now there is some arguments, like kind of against this, in the sense that, like, for example, we just watched the video on the food industry and like slaughterhouses. We don't really provide these animals with more considerability, but according to ratiocentrism, more considerability should go to those that act rationally. And you could make a case. You could there could be research out there to say that these animals are acting rationally or have the ability to act rationally or based on reason, not just instinct. So that's some of the flaws I see in ratiocentrism. But anthropocentrism is giving more considerability to anything that is biologically human. So, like, in terms of for adult humans specifically, it gives more considerability because it is a human, because it is biologically human. Um, Now, there have been sort of fightbacks about this moral theory, because it can be seen as a speciesist, in a sense, or like racist, but for like species, because just because something is not human doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve more considerability. It's kind of like one of the more narrow views of moral considerability, because it just puts humans in that sort of, only these people need to be considered morally, in a sense. So that leaves out everything else, anything else essentially. Sentientism is the idea that anything that is conscious, or anything that has a sentient, there's a conscious being, deserves moral considerability. This is the one I personally agree with most, um, just because, like, certain things like plants, um, we'll get to ones that kind of do and also include plants, but plants, um, rocks, they don't really deserve moral considerability because they aren't sentient, they aren't conscious. They might be biologically alive, but they're not conscious. So this is probably one of the ones that I agree with the most. So next we have biocentrism, which is the ethical theory that, or no, sorry, the moral theory that anything that is biologically, any and all living organisms deserve moral considerability. So back to my first example with the flowers, I personally don't believe that flowers deserve moral considerability which falls under sentientism. But under biocentrism, flowers, can't think of any other examples, grass, these type of things will have moral considerability granted in this in their cases. And the last one we have is ecocentrism. Essentially, ecocentrism gives moral considerability to something that kind of adds to its situation. So, or promotes growth within its ecosystem is what the definition is. Basically, this means that like it grants moral considerability to those that benefit their surroundings in a sense. So that could be, you know, not even necessarily benefits their surroundings, but it's just a part of an ecosystem because you have pieces of ecosystem and they all work in tandem, not necessarily benefiting each other or like detrimenting each other, but part of an ecosystem that is like a functioning ecosystem. That is what ecocentrism determines. That's how ecocentrism determines who or what gets moral consideration. So in conclusion, you have the five moral theories: ratiocentrism, which is rational, anything rational; anthropocentrism is just anything human; sentientism, which is anything that is conscious, sentient; biocentrism, which is any living organism, anything that, just any living organism. Biocentrism is any living organism; and ecocentrism, which is anything that is a part of an ecosystem. So, thank you.